The infamous Snow White remake is finally here, and what a wild ride it's been to get to this point, with studio missteps, long delays, reshoots, and of course everything the star of the film, Rachel Zegler, has contributed to the whole fiasco. Now the film is out, receiving heavy criticism and mockery, what happens next for Zegler? Is she to be cast in something even bigger, and give another studio a massive headache for years at a time? Or has she done so much damage to her personal brand that no film studio will ever want to be associated with her again? It's no secret how badly Disney handled the production of the Snow White remake, with a long list of mistakes which have been roundly mocked by this point. So right from the film's inception, things were off to a bad start. In summary, Disney reshaped the story for the modern age, making it more politically correct essentially, and doing away with elements from the animated version deemed by the company to be outdated and problematic. Why was this such a foolish thing to do? Well, if you were a fan of the animated Snow White film, Disney was no doubt banking on you turning up for the remake. You'd be an obvious demographic to target, so having the company insult you by implying that the old film you love is inappropriate for the modern age and full of problematic tropes that should be condemned may well dissuade you from watching the remake. Not only might you feel bitter towards the company that's insulted your tastes and values, but you'll also have come to understand that the company is not treating the 1937 Snow White story faithfully. So it's not even going to be the story you like anyway, but something new. This could make one wonder of Disney, why not just make a new story with its own characters and title if you don't like the previous one, if you deem it unsuitable for the modern age? Brand recognition is the answer, but evidently, to much of the audience, that's not really a good enough reason to butcher a classic. So that was Disney setting the tone for this film's marketing run, putting a sour taste in people's mouths right from the off. But what about the film's star? How did she make the whole situation even worse for Disney? Well, through a fairly long string of her own PR controversies. She seemed to have a habit of making obnoxious, oblivious remarks, and doing even worse than that in some cases, actually engaging in some very irresponsible behaviour that put targets on numerous other individuals. One of Rachel Zegler's controversies that thrust her into infamy was when she showed contempt for the animated Snow White film by claiming it was outdated and that the prince of the story was a stalker. That's obviously going to rub people up the wrong way, not only because it condemns the original Snow White film and implicitly insults those who like it, but also because it signals what Zegler then went on to make explicit in that interview, that this is a modern, politically correct version of Snow White, injecting tropes into the story that much of the public is thoroughly weary of at this point. So that's not great, but in the grand scheme of things, it's actually a relatively minor PR blunder, given all the other controversies Zegler generated about herself. Back in 2019, Zegler targeted Jeremy Renner on Twitter, asking if she could be the new Hawkeye now, apparently in response to news of various details of Renner's divorce, which demonised him. I haven't been able to find any information that definitively confirms that was the reason Zegler made the comment, but it seems to be the consensus that the gossip about Renner's marriage is the reason. And if you know of any extra details to fill in the gaps, feel free to post them in the comments. Anyway, when people started responding to that tweet by Zegler, she added to the thread, smearing Renner with the usual bingo card epithets. Yes, racist, sexist, transphobic, all the things and more. I have no idea what informed this list of smears, but I'm not even wasting time looking into such childish, vapid claims. Anyway, this story flew somewhat under the radar. It didn't blow up like some of Zegler's other controversies. But if Disney was aware of it, they can't have been all that pleased with one of their stars attacking another of their stars, who was, and is, far more established in the industry and popular with audiences than her at that. Further showing up Zegler by comparison, Jeremy Renner completely ignored her remarks, showing maturity and professionalism by rising above it all. That's if he was even aware of the remarks. Back in 2023, there were Hollywood labour strikes taking place over various disputes, including worker pay in the industry. Zegler attended a SAG-AFTRA demonstration for the cause, giving an interview in which, with the passionate demeanour of someone who'd been very hard done by, she proclaimed that she deserved to be paid for every hour her Snow White film streams online for the hard work of wearing the dress of an iconic Disney character for 18-hour filming days. Of course, this completely missed the point of the demonstration she was attending. The strikes weren't really about stars like her, who were already being paid generously. They were for the benefit of people in the industry making so little they were struggling to get by. I think most people would consider wearing a dress, even for long filming days, as being a pretty small ask, for the amount of money this actress was paid for it. With this comment Zegler made, she came across as an oblivious, entitled brat, firmly cementing herself as being totally unlikable to the public. Another development which was not good, since she was meant to be the marketable star of an upcoming Disney film release. Sometime after this, in 2024, things escalated. Rachel Zegler posted a tweet thanking people for viewing the Snow White trailer, and then added another tweet to that thread saying, "And always remember, Free Palestine." Now, of course, everyone is going to have their political views, but generally, it's expected of employees that they won't associate their employers with those personal political views by linking a political message to promotion for that company's work. Zegler's public comments on Israel and Palestine, it's been reported, led to Gal Gadot, Israeli herself, receiving an influx of death threats, so severe that Disney felt the need to hire the actress extra personal security. One of Snow White's producers flew to New York to speak to Zegler about her behaviour, requesting she take the tweet down. One could perhaps forgive a young actress posting something like this online without considering or understanding the ramifications, then taking it down as soon as she was made aware of how inappropriate it was. But that's not what happened here. Zegler refused to take the tweet down. She was then given social media supervision, but it made no difference. She continued to post incendiary things online, i.e., in response to Donald Trump's re-election, she went on an Instagram tirade in which she said, "May Trump supporters and Trump himself never know peace." That's a very large segment of her country she was throwing hate at, all potential paying customers for Disney. The Disney executives must have been furious by this point, kicking themselves for ever getting involved with this reckless, inconsiderate actress. This time, Zegler did walk back the post, publicly apologising for it and stating that her emotions got the better of her. I wonder if perhaps she was given a far more severe dressing down by her employers at this time, who may have definitively run out of patience with her. All of these controversies Rachel Zegler generated compounded the mistakes Disney had already made with their handling of the Snow White remake, causing them more problems with marketing the film and damaging their reputation in a deeper way. Not only did Disney start the promotion of this remake by announcing their butchery of a classic film many love, but they'd added insult to injury by casting someone completely obnoxious in the role, who had contempt for the original animated film. It had the appearance of Disney trying as hard as they could to give a middle finger to the audience at every possible turn. There are other Disney actresses with controversial associations whose careers we can compare to Rachel Zegler's, to get an idea of the direction her career may take. Firstly, there's Daisy Ridley, whose big break was in the Disney Star Wars films. Ridley herself is not a figure who deliberately courts controversy. Rather, the films that put her in the spotlight did this on her behalf. These Disney Star Wars films were hated so much by such a significant chunk of the audience that Daisy Ridley has not been launched to the level of stardom one might have once expected for the face of Star Wars for this generation. She doesn't appear in much now, and when she does make an appearance in something, it's usually in a secondary character role or as the star in some lower tier film, like that window cleaner thing she was in. Because Daisy Ridley hasn't deliberately courted controversy, there's far more reason for Rachel Zegler to fade into obscurity than her. The bad marketing stink left on Ridley is entirely the fault of Disney for so badly mishandling the Star Wars trilogy she was in. But still, it doesn't matter whose fault it was. Because she has such negativity associated with her name, she's now not a marketable actress, so most studios don't seem interested in casting her. In a similar way to how the company put Daisy Ridley in this position, Disney has also damaged Rachel Zegler's name by mishandling Snow White so badly. But Zegler has done far more damage to her own brand with her own behaviour that Disney had nothing to do with. So there's really more reason to speculate that Zegler's exile from stardom will be more severe than Daisy Ridley's. Another actress to compare Zegler to is Brie Larson, who is more similar to Zegler than Daisy Ridley, having followed the path of damaging her personal brand by frequently making incendiary, divisive comments that insulted and alienated much of the audience her employers were meant to be appealing to. Since then, Brie has not become the star she may have thought she would be, after being cast as a lead in a Marvel film. Now, Brie Larson has learned to keep her political opinions to herself, no doubt still believing all the same stuff she used to spout, but knowing that spouting it will bring nothing but trouble her way. Although she seems to have learnt the lesson too late, and so doesn't get cast in much now. Given she's retreated from actively courting controversy, clearly as a deliberate PR move, there's possibly potential for her to rehabilitate her career. Who knows? But at the moment, she's not very marketable, and does provide a fairly well-fitting template for the path Zegler has taken. It seems like this whole fiasco has contributed, among other events such as the 2024 US election, to Disney's gradual enlightenment to the true cultural attitudes of the majority of the public. Maybe more and more companies are beginning to realise that they have been trying to appeal to the wrong people for the last decade, a small minority of radicals who have been dominating the discourse. This seems to have contributed to Disney's attempts to try and salvage their reputation, first with delays to reshoot sections of Snow White and other PR efforts, and now, some have argued, by using Rachel Zegler as the scapegoat for the Snow White remake's failure. If this latter strategy is truly what they have been doing, then it shows that they don't have any interest in maintaining a professional relationship with Zegler for possible future projects. Now Snow White has flopped and been critically torn apart, capping off the Rachel Zegler saga. After all the trouble she's caused them, why would Disney ever want to work with her again? Why would any other studio or filmmaker want to work with her after all this? To any studio, it would surely just seem like it's not worth the hassle. Rachel Zegler will probably continue to have a showbiz career, on Broadway as many have speculated, perhaps also appearing in low-profile film projects. But her rise to stardom is probably, at the very least, slowed for the time being, if not having simply reached its end. Now that's the case, it's probably time for people to stop piling on her. It's completely legitimate to criticise the woman for the things she says, but going beyond that to personal attacks about her appearance and posting zoomed in pictures of her back hair and stuff online is needlessly distasteful and unkind. Anyway, what do you think? Do you agree with my assessment here, or do you think this whole thing has been blown out of proportion, and Rachel Zegler will continue to thrive in high-profile films? Let me know in the comments below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, see you next time.